We're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, I wanted to share a little bit about virtual investing with you guys. Here's what's crazy. Californians have been investing in the Salt Lake, Utah market for years and years and years for the fact that California has gotten so expensive, right? People in Los Angeles are buying investment properties in Salt Lake City because the cost to buy a property in Los Angeles is so expensive that they've been virtual investing here in Utah. Well, guess what? I got news for you. As of right now, unless the market does some type of correction and we see it go down, I shared this in 2019. I read an article that Salt Lake City hit the most unaffordable markets in America list in the top 25. Now we hit 25. So that's good because out of all the houses, all the cities that are unaffordable, we're the most affordable at 25, right? That are on this list. But here's what, as of right now, as I'm bringing you this message, homes in Salt Lake City, for the most part, are becoming very challenging to cash flow unless you find a lot of opportunities, right? The professional real estate investor guys who are out there doing mass mailing campaigns, doing door knocking, doing cold calling, doing massive networking. Yes, these guys are still finding properties that can cash flow. But the average person who doesn't spend their whole day looking for properties or has a team looking for properties, the average property you're going to find no longer cash flows in Salt Lake City. So, what Californians were doing as far as buying Salt Lake real estate because we cash flowed, we now are going to, in the near future, have to do the same if you're looking for cash flow. Meaning, pretty soon, and I don't know when, we might go into some type of market correction, which would be, potentially advantageous if you're looking for cash flow properties. But there might be a time in the near future where if you want to purchase cash flowing real estate, you're going to have to now do what Californians did and go to another city. We're going to have to start virtual investing. And it's already happening. I have so many real estate investing friends that are going to Oklahoma, that are going to Atlanta, that are going to Indianapolis, that are going to Kansas City. Why? Because those markets still cash flow. So they are leaving. They live in Utah, but because we can't buy cash flowing properties in Utah anymore, again, unless you're a real estate professional who has a team that finds these for you, but the average individual's now starting to go to other markets to invest in real estate to have the potential to cash flow. And keep in mind, the guys that I'm talking about aren't your average individuals as far as real estate's concerned. A lot of these guys are real estate professionals who are investing in the Arkansas and the Oklahomas and the Atlantas. So you may want to, and you may not, but you may want to invest in real estate one day, and you live here in Salt Lake City or in the Utah market, and all of a sudden you start researching the prices and go, holy cow, things are expensive. And by the time I have to make my mortgage payment relative to the rental income that comes in, I'm negative cash flow. And now you're realizing I missed the freaking boat on being an investor in Salt Lake City. I should have started investing a couple years ago, or really like 10 years ago would have been the prime time, right? But nonetheless, you may find yourself now going, well, I can't even afford to buy an investment property in the Salt Lake market because it's going to be like, like the people in Los Angeles, they can't afford to buy an investment property in Los Angeles. It doesn't do them any good as far as cash flow. So they come here. Well, now we're going to have to go somewhere else and consider other markets. So I'm going to share some tips. I've been virtual investing for, probably 20-ish years. See, because here's where my career as a real estate investor started. I was living in New York City at the time. Very similar to Los Angeles in that you can't afford real estate. It's so expensive. So I was going to the real estate investment clubs in New York City, and they were teaching the people that lived in New York City how to invest outside of New York City, basically virtual invest. So I started learning how to virtual invest way before I ever learned how to local invest. Now I live in Salt Lake City. I've been living here now for approximately 12 years again. I was born and raised here, moved out of Utah, then came back and been back for about 12 years. And so the last 12 years I've been local investing. However, prior to that, it was all virtual investing for me. And so I wanted to share some tips when we get back from commercial break on things that you may want to start considering looking if that day comes where you think you may want to go outside of the Salt Lake City market as well. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Home, I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and today we are talking about what is your why, because your why is so important. If you don't know what your why is, it's not detailed enough, you don't have a roadmap, you don't have a mentor, it's going to be very difficult to achieve your goals. So your why is going to keep you motivated if it's big enough. So if you don't have a big enough why, if you're not taking action on a daily basis, then you probably don't have a big enough why. You need to figure out what it's going to take to make you take action on a regular basis. All right, now let's dive into virtual investing here. So I want to share some tips with you. When you look into investing in a market outside of the one you live in, you probably don't know much about it. You'll hear of a lot of markets that are advantageous to go into. Indianapolis, Atlanta, Kansas City, Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma. I've just named off a bunch of places that I know of friends of mine who don't live in any of those places but invest in those places, right? And for whatever reason, they chose a particular market. Now, I never asked them why they chose that market. They could have been from there for all I know, or they could have family that lives there, which is a great reason to invest in a market outside of the market you live in, is then you have somebody you trust who can go check on these properties. But if you invest in a market, for example, I was living in New York City at the time, and I invested in Salt Lake City, Kansas City, and upstate New York. Now, Salt Lake City made sense. I was born and raised in Salt Lake City and had family here that I could, ask for help. However, Kansas City, I knew nobody, I'd never even been there in my life. In fact, to this day, I've only been there twice, I think, and that was to watch the New England Patriots play the Kansas City Chiefs, and that was also for the Major League All-Star Baseball game. I think I've been there 3 times. I went one other time. Anyways, I know nobody there, right, when I started investing, and so what I did is I researched markets that had a growing population and a growing economy that were also investing in themselves. Okay, so some cities are dumping money into themselves versus other cities that are not dumping quite as much money into themselves, right? Now, I'm not saying states, I'm talking in specific cities. So here in Salt Lake City, what's the mall that's downtown? City Creek. The City Creek, I think, was a $3 billion project, right? That's money being dumped into a city, whether it was the city itself or an investor who came in and was improving the city. That is the stuff that I look for. Cities that were kind of improving themselves, right? So Kansas City had a growing population, which was good because we want a market that have more people coming in than going out, because we're in the business of real estate, and we want people to occupy our rental properties, and we want people to purchase our flips. And so if we are in a market where people are leaving, that could be troublesome. 2, we want a growing economy, because oftentimes the growing economy is what brings people to the market. And then 3, a city that has money dumping into itself, whether it's an investor or whether it's the city itself. So Kansas City was the market that I ended up choosing as my next market. Now, here's the thing. Once you've figured out what city you want to be in, and there's going to be a lot of cities that you'll research that are going to have growing economy, growing population, and big money dumping into the city itself, then you might want to consider if it's a place that you like to visit, right? Because then you could do business and pleasure at the same time by going to that particular city. And maybe you have family there, and that's why you like to visit. But what you're going to do once you've picked this city is you're going to want to read the master plan of the city. You're going to go onto Google and you're going to Google master plan of whatever city. And the city might have multiple master plans chopped up into different parts of the city. But what the master plan is going to do is it's going to share with you the ideas and plans that the city has potentially in play for the city and for the future, right? And so you can then decide if this is something that you feel comfortable getting on board, right? So I always say you don't want to be a pioneer in the real estate industry and go into a market that you feel is going to boom. You want to be a follower. You want to follow the big time investors. So that leads to the next step that you're going to want to do, which is find the 5%. So who's the 5%? The 5%, there's a statistic out there that states that 95% of the money that's controlled in this world is controlled by 5%. And that's the big Targets, the Walmarts, the Costcos, the massive corporations. I just named America's biggest corporations, but obviously every country has massive corporations, and that's the 5%. So we want to find the 5%. Where are they investing? So I'll jump onto Google Earth and find the Home Depots, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costcos in a particular area. I don't want to be a pioneer and go in an area that the 5% is not investing in. See, the 5%, they spend lots of money to figure out what communities have enough households to support their business. So I just want to feed off of that research that they paid for and follow them, right? So I'll invest in neighborhoods, communities that these 5% have already set up. If there's a Costco there, if there's a Home Depot, a Walmart there, then that's a market that I'm going to feel, or an area or a neighborhood that I'm going to feel comfortable also investing in. But I don't want to go too far on the outskirts, right? I don't want to go too far away from the Costco's where I think, okay, this is the outskirts, but I think I can get real estate cheap here, because in due time, the outskirts then become where the infill, where everybody is investing, right? The population grows to that next neighborhood, and I don't want to be the pioneer who's guessing wrong and going into this area that I think one day a Walmart will come, and they don't, or maybe they do, but it takes a lot longer. So then I go on and find the 5% in these markets. Now, the reason I do this is because, like I said, I'd never been to Kansas City in my entire life. So I didn't know a good neighborhood from a bad neighborhood, so I just wanted to follow the 5%. If you visit this market over and over, you already travel there, you got friends and family, you may already get know where's a good neighborhood and a bad neighborhood. So you might not need to do this. But for those of you who are entertaining a market that you've never even stepped foot in once in your life, or maybe even, maybe a few times, but you have no idea of where you should be, go onto Google Earth and let the 5% tell you where you should be. So pick your market by growing population, economy, investing into itself, then find where the 5% is, and then from there, you're going to want to start to build your power team. Once you know the neighborhoods and the areas you're going to want to invest in as a virtual investor, then you're going to invest the time it takes to build your power team, right? And here's the thing, you really want to pour a lot of energy into building your power team, because these are the people you're going to depend on, who are going to be your eyes and ears on the ground for you in that market, since you just can't fly there, you're just not going to pick up, let's say your property manager calls you and says, hey, there's a problem here, or your contractor calls you and say, here's a problem here. Unlike if you lived in Salt Lake City and the property was in Salt Lake City, you could just drive over there real quick and look at it. No, you're not going to get in a plane and fly to Kansas City, Oklahoma, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Arkansas, wherever, right? So you have to find the best power team. Okay, now, obviously, once you find the best power team, then you're going to be able to start your investing activity. But so many people don't even know where to start. So what I wanted to share with you is, first, research the cities that have a growing economy and population, also investment that are happening in that market by the 5%. After you've located the 5% in there, then build your power team. And once you've done that, then yes, there's going to be differences obviously in due diligence and renovating a home and property management. But from there, if you've got a power team, you've got people you can depend on to assist you in growing your real estate business. Now, we could talk a lot more about virtual investing, of course, but I wanted to just kind of share that in the share those kind of tips for you so you have a beginning to kind of start with. And then from there, obviously, you can grow your business to however long you want to, however far you want to take it. I mentioned earlier that I had dedicated the show to the people who invested in my real estate course. Believe it or not, I created a real estate course, and it teaches all about the virtual investing world because, again, that's how my career started. And if you have any questions about virtual investing, I'd love to chat with you. Feel free to give me a call. But it is time to now wish you all a very wonderful weekend. You guys have been listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM, the show Utah Home Sweet Home. Again, I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and I want to wish you guys all a wonderful New Year's. We will be back on January 2nd. Believe it or not, that is my last show, because from there, I will be making the transition to Good Things Utah on television. All right, enjoy your weekend.
Okay, before we part ways, in case you have a dog or know someone else who does have a dog, I wanted to take a quick second to show you the snap leash. The snap leash can literally do so many things, and I'm going to share with you one of the many cool things that it can do. As you can see, the snap leash is designed with 2 swivel hooks, one on each end. This end has a cushion stitched into it to make it comfortable when walking your dog. Now, all you have to do is take this swivel hook, put it into this very first grommet, and now you've got your handle. Okay, so now let's imagine you're at the park and you want to secure your pet quickly, safely, and easily to a park bench, a tree, or a pole because you just want to sit down and relax. Well, all you need to do is take this swivel hook, remove it from the very first grommet, wrap this leash around any size tree or pole or park bench, and put it into the appropriate grommet, and now you have secured your pet quickly, safely, and easily. And when it's time to head home, another great feature about the snap leash is you can simply wrap it around your waist for hands-free walking. Lastly, if you ever accidentally forget your waist bags at home, these grommets make a great place to fasten the waist bags so you never leave home without them. And if you want to see all of the other cool things that the snap leash can do, then please just click on the link below and find out why so many others are falling in love with the snap leash.